Spanish interpretation.
Si hay alguien en la audiencia que necesite interpretación al español, por favor levante la mano y que no tenga audífonos. Para los que están en línea, por favor, utilicen el icono de Raise Hand, levanten la manito y nos indican a través del chat, por favor. Vamos a esperar unos segundos para ver si hay alguien que está interesado en línea. Ok, al parecer hay nadie.
And Trissa now will make available the Spanish room online.
All right, very good, thank you, and welcome to our guests, and it's good to see those headsets getting some use. Glad you can be here. So now we'll turn over to staff for roll call.
Alrighty. Solange Altman. Aaron Anguiano. Leah Ashford. Josh Bridegroom. Wendy Bird. Trish Christensen. Darius Crosby. Jeff Dirksey. Birgit Flatiger. Teresa Gamboa. Johnny Garcia, that I saw you walk in. Jonathan Grammatico. Austin Grant. Brad Hahn is in Italy. Tom Helm. Ruben Imperial. Jennifer Jennison online. Will Kelly is here.
Thank you.
Marianne Martino is not here. Matthew Mason.
Is online. I believe. Yeah.
Linda Mayo.
Sorry, I just want to stop. I'm hearing that there's no sound on Zoom, or that people on Zoom can't hear us. It's fine now?
It's fine now.
Great. Wonderful.
Linda Mayo. Look, seeing you online. Perfecta Munoz.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here as well, Jennifer Jennison.
Thank you, Jennifer. Perfecta Munoz. Alvaro Ramirez. Nico Solorio. Dan Starr.
Present.
Aaron Tate. Present. Tim Zierli. Not present.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Matthew Mason.
Hey, Matthew.
Just letting you all know I'm here.
Good. Yes, I think we had an issue with the sound, but I think Edgar was able to see who was on Zoom, so I think we got everyone on roll call. But thank you for double checking.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as usual, we'll start just reviewing kind of where we are and our intentions for this meeting. We are nearing the end of our process, which is exciting and also kind of on the precipice of the next stage of actually seeing these recommendations implemented. So tonight we're going to review our community feedback that we've received so far and our plan for getting additional community input. And again, it's very nice to see so much of the community here in the room tonight and on Zoom. As we all remember from last time, this is a big part of our focus now as we're finalizing our recommendations, making sure we're going to the community and learning as much as we can and collecting feedback. We'll also talk about the changes that have been made to the draft between our last meeting, April 27th, and tonight, reviewing those as we move closer to a final version. We will have an extended, a longer public comment period than we've had before, which is wonderful, and we'll get to hear from a lot of members of the community, and then we'll talk a little bit about our next steps. As always, these are our group agreements that we agreed to on our first meeting, not quite a year ago, but getting close, which I'll just leave up for a moment so we can review, and I think we've done an excellent job of respecting these as we work together. Updates and announcements. Do we have any updates from staff? No. Okay. Very good. All right. Then we will move right along to community engagement. So we have had 3 community engagement meetings in the last several weeks, and we have some still pending. I attended 2 of them. I'm happy to share some of my observations, but I'll maybe turn it over to, so Wendy, would you like to say a few words about the NAACP meeting we had a week or so ago?
Good evening. Well, we had a pretty robust discussion, and I think that with all of these meetings, members that have not been as involved throughout the whole process aren't really as up to date with a lot of the research and things like that as possible. Jim Costello wanted to be here tonight. He did have some feedback, and basically his takeaway from some of the questions that was asked was he had more curiosity about the legal structure if a citizens review board with an independent auditor is put together, how would that work? And so we haven't got to that part yet, but that was mainly his take back. And then I think another person was going to call in via Zoom.
Oh, wonderful, for public comment. Yeah, and thank you again for inviting me to speak at that meeting. And I was really impressed with how engaged the group was and the really detailed questions. It was clear that folks were paying close attention and had really read up on things.
Thank you. I think everybody was on their best behavior because I hear different things sometimes.
All right, and then we also had a meeting with West Modesto People of Action. Perfecto, do you want to say a few words about that? Can you speak into the microphone if you can?
Okay. Yeah, we had a good meeting, and we have 2 groups. We had one that was a Spanish-speaking group that met in the morning, and then we had a second group that evening that met at their primary English-speaking individuals. And I think the Spanish-speaking group had a lot of questions that related to the subject matter. And then the English group was really engaging, to say the least, and they were asking a lot of questions, and I think that was a good thing because it was a cross section of West Modesto, included African Americans, Hispanics, and others, and we even had youth there at this meeting, and so we've been trying to get those young people involved in this whole process too, because sometimes they get the full impact of what goes on in terms of the legal aspects of law enforcement. And so other than that, I think we did a good job, and I hope that we can continue to be engaging as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I was unable to make the morning one, but attended the evening one. Thought it was a really, really good discussion. And then, Trish, Trish, there you are. Do you want to say a few words about the chamber movement?
Yeah, sure. Kate came with a PowerPoint. She did a presentation to my board. Most of the questions and conversations were jumping to next steps and the other pieces we've talked about. So we focused more on bringing them back into this is where we're at this point in time. It was a supportive conversation. They liked how comprehensive our process has been and how many elements we've brought to the table to this point. I've offered to host something broader at some point when ready. So,
wonderful.
All in all, it's been well. She sent me an updated PowerPoint yesterday, which went back to my board just last night.
Oh,
so
great.
More will come.
Very good. Thank you. And then I believe there's some meetings still pending, and some groups are going to do public meetings. Some groups are going to go do meetings, just for their membership, whatever makes sense for that organization. I'm curious, is there anyone on the work group who's working on setting up a meeting that wants to plug it or just say a few words about anything that's pending? Yes, Teresa. I think you gotta flip the switch on the top there. Yeah, close. There, Michael's got you. Oh, there you go.
There
you
I
got
go.
it.
Okay, the Woodland West Community Neighborhood will be having a presentation on Monday, June 13th at 6:30 at Victory Life Center Church at 21800 Woodland Avenue.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Yep. Tom?
Hello.
There
As
you
I
go.
mentioned before, the ACLU chapter is going to put on an event, but we still haven't set a date yet. It might even be after, we vote, but it might be more like outreach for folks to get engaged when the city council starts considering it. So not really much of an update, but that we are still planning to do something.
And I forgot to mention that Faith in the Valley is hosting a meeting tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock at 202 H Street. I believe there might also be an online option. I think Latricia's in the waiting room who will give a public comment later and say a few words about that as well. Anyone else in the work group want to talk about other outreach that's in the works or that should be in the works? All right, very good. And so now we come to the revisions that have been made to the draft since our previous meeting. So you have over on the table over there, or hopefully everyone's received the email with the revised kind of red line version where you can see the changes. And also, I know this was helpful to me, I hope it's helpful to others. I sent around a list of the changes that have been made between last month and this month, just so you can go through and see them. Some of them are very minor, sort of wording changes or formatting. I want to call everyone's attention to number 4, where we have a table where everyone's name and organization is listed. Please double check that. Please make sure that your name and organization appear correctly. That's one part that I'm very, very happy to make changes on if there's any need for any correction. I also, you'll notice a lot of the changes have to do with the relationship between CHAT and MCERT, and I would just want to thank Linda for her work on this. I think the previous version put a little bit more emphasis on CHAT than on MCERT, had a little more information and data about CHAT, and I think Linda called to the ad hoc group's attention that gave the mistaken impression that one program was more important than the other, which I don't think was anyone's intention. So several of those changes were just correcting that imbalance and making sure we kind of talked about those two programs equally, and I think we achieved that. So you'll notice that's honestly about half of the changes that were made, and so thank you, Linda, for identifying that issue and then helping resolve it. And a few other important, but I think relatively straightforward changes. I'll just ask if there's anyone, we'll start with the chairs of the ad hoc groups, if anyone wants to say anything about revisions, and then open up to any other ad hoc members. Perhaps things just speak for themselves, but we'll just give it opportunity here. So I'll just go through the order there. So Leah, is there anything you want to say about alternate response? I know I kind of stole most of that, but if there's anything you'd like to add, that was it. Okay, sorry about that. And then Tom, anything about accountability?
No, we had a very short meeting because we were all pretty much in agreement still, so not much to report on that.
Excellent. And then Dan, policies and procedures. If there's anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, we had a little lengthier. Can you hear me? I'm getting some feedback on my end. Okay. Will, can you give me a thumbs up if you can?
Yeah,
hear me?
we can hear you just fine. Maybe there's just a little bit of a delay. Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a lengthier discussion than maybe some of the other ad hoc groups, but we're still moving in the right direction, and I think that to your point, we are we're moving in the right direction, and I think that everyone is comfortable with where the recommendation sits as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a lengthier discussion, but I thought we were able to really focus in on the one or two remaining issues and find something that worked for everyone. At least I hope so. I agree. Very good. that's our business for tonight. We're going to have some time for discussion later I'll say unless anyone has something they want to say right now about the changes, but if not, we'll have time later for kind of a fuller discussion and to weigh in and make any comments we need to make. But unless there's something urgent, we'll move. Yep, I see Clue's hand up.
So, Will, I think with so many new members from the community here tonight, it may be worthwhile to just do a really high-level summary of what the recommendations are in the 3 areas.
Oh, yes, thank you, Clue. That's an excellent suggestion. So let me see if I can give my 3-minute version. So you can actually see on the screen right now, we're given 3 areas of focus by the council that we were meant to focus on. Alternate response, which means non-police response to 911 calls. That includes things like sending social workers or mental health clinicians or EMTs when appropriate to respond to 911 calls. Accountability, which broadly encompasses civilian oversight and transparency and understanding existing accountability processes within the department. And then policies and practice, which is kind of a catch-all that, as I understand it, is every policy and everything that the police department does, which, as Dan alluded to, is maybe why we had a longer discussion in that area. And so our recommendations in alternate response are that the city continue, because what I'm about to describe is something they're already doing, so continue to take a data-driven approach of identifying opportunities for non-police response to 911 calls, both to make better use of very limited resources, but also in some cases to hopefully lead to better outcomes, and build programs and expand them to meet that need. And that recommendation centers around the 2 programs I was just talking about a moment ago. CHAT, which is a program that sends outreach workers with kind of a social worker type skill set to respond, I think largely, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but largely to calls, what are called quality of life calls, basically someone calling 911 for an issue related to an unhoused person. And I think the department is finding that they can address those calls better, more efficiently, better use of resources, not necessarily sending a police officer every time, at least when there's no indication of danger, and sending one of these outreach workers. So that program is growing quite rapidly, largely due to grant funding, and an important piece of our recommendation is to secure long-term funding and for the city to make appropriate commitments to make sure that that program doesn't disappear when the grant funding runs out, but that it can continue to grow and thrive. And then MCERT is a program where a mental health clinician is either responding to a call along with, I think generally along with a police officer. So that program was identified as a better response when there is an indication of a mental health crisis and an indication of some sort of safety risk, so that you would need both. You would need the law enforcement officer for the safety piece and the mental health clinician to better respond to the mental health crisis. And so both of those programs are scaling up to meet the need that the city has identified, and I think we hope that as those programs grow, more will be learned, more capacity will be built, and they'll continue to find new ways to use these programs. And then accountability, we heard from a number of different cities and a number of different models. Every city that does something in this space of civilian oversight or accountability, or goes by many names, does it differently, sometimes very, very differently. And we settled on something called in the jargon of these things, a review auditor model. But the important thing is that there's 2 pieces to it. One is a community engagement piece, which really could look something like this, like community representatives coming together, engaging with the city and with the department, learning and helping to communicate both ways, from the community to the city and back again. And then the auditor piece is an element of professional oversight, where you have a trained professional, not one of us, a trained professional investigations who has access to internal affairs investigations, has the ability to provide an independent perspective, both because that can be helpful and to build trust with the community that there's some independent perspective in internal affairs investigations, and has the ability, to the extent allowable by law, because there are some legal constraints, to report things back to the community. So the idea is to have more trust, both because there's more transparency, because there's someone independent, and because there's this community engagement piece that's working very closely with the auditor and with the city. then in policies and practices, we had a lot of really robust discussions about a whole bunch of different topics and identified several different things that might be interesting areas of future consideration, and the kind of result of that ad hoc group is ideas for this future accountability structure to consider taking up in the future that range from accountability to community engagement to looking at patterns in youth arrest rate to all sorts of things. So I probably went over 3 minutes, and you got me going, and I just kept going. But that's my short version of what's in this 17-page report. Thank you, Kalua. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Mike, who's going to facilitate our public comment.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We really appreciate the getting a chance to take it out for the listening sessions for the public. We really are interested in as much feedback as possible. So this is an opportunity for us to have a public comment. So if you're in person and you have a public comment, just please raise your hand and we can set you up at the mic. There's a couple of microphones here and there, and you can step up to the microphone and you can get an opportunity. If you're on the Zoom, then you can raise your hand and we'll make sure that we get your comment in. It's really important for you to understand that the public's comment, the public feedback is really a critical component to us getting to some really valuable recommendations that can be submitted to the City Council. So with that, do we have any hands inside or virtually? You have one? Yes.
So the Zoom audience can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. I personally think when you mentioned that that police is not going to go to 911 calls when it comes to mental health, I personally think that that's great because there's been so many emergencies that, with people with the schizophrenia. And obviously the police don't know and they just act. However, there's so many incidents that they have occurred that, that the police acted not knowing, and the families, and I personally know someone that has so much anger towards the police officers, like in general, because they killed his brother, and because he had schizophrenia, he had an episode and they called the police. And the police just went and acted and, trying to defend the other people. And I think that it's nobody's fault because they didn't know, the other people didn't know. And the fact that now the mental health, staff is going to be in the area of easy access for help for the public, I think that's super good, especially now the mental health is a big thing. So yeah, I'm really happy for that and excited for a lot of people that I know.
Thank you. We really appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
And, I failed to mention that, for the sake of time and to get as many people that may want to share as possible, we want to place a 3-minute timer on there for your comment. And if you go a little bit over 3 minutes, I'll probably gently say your time is up and try to get you to let the next person chime in, so that just for the sake of time and just for us to keep the order that we need. Any other public comments inside? Did you have a public comment?
Yes, my name is Ron Dello to the West Modesto Community Collaborative and also the West Modesto People of Action Council. I have a comment about the police force. There's a number of times where there have been altercations with civilians and the police force, and it's my feeling that if we got to know the police force better, we would have a better relationship with the police force. I don't see any of the policemen getting out of their vehicles, coming up to the public places and saying, hey, my name is Officer so-and-so, and I'd like to let you know that I'll be patrolling this area on a regular basis, and we don't allow this or we don't allow that in particular places. Then we won't have such a feedback from the public saying, hey, what are they doing up here? They're here to protect us. You know, they're not here to cause problems. They're here to solve problems. We don't, the most of the people that are engaging with the police, whether they're homeless or people just hanging out at the different parks, they have to be treated a certain way so that they'll know that they're also being protected. They're not just being scattered and told to leave. They're being told to leave by officer so-and-so, so that they get to know the police force. That's the whole thing about this, is getting to know the police force, not just experience putting your power out there, because you do have an enormous amount of power, and people know that. But we, as community members, want to be at ease when we're around the police force, not to be tense and on alert every time we see a police car, or hopefully when we see policemen walking up and down a particular area. We want to feel comfortable.
Yes, sir. Really appreciate your comment. Thank you. We have someone on Zoom, Astrid Zuniga. If I misspelled or mispronounced your name, I
Yes.
apologize.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Astrid Zuniga. I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Stanislaus and Tuolumne Central Labor Council, as well as the statewide Vice President for United Domestic Workers, AFSCME Local 3930. And I am extremely excited about the recommendations that have come forward, specifically in regards to the alternative options of chat and MCERT as a parent of a child with adult child, should I say, no, it's mine, that has autism and intellectual disabilities, who also has aggressive tendencies. These types of things, when I have a health crisis or meltdowns, is super important. And I can't express my gratitude to this committee as well as the police department in taking these steps moving forward to find alternatives, as well as the transparency and accountability, and coming up with a policy and practices that will bring our community and law enforcement together moving forward. I'm excited, and I encourage everybody to support this and talk to their neighbors about it, talk to their family about it. It's the only way that we're going to create a harmonious experience here. And I am excited to move forward and work with the committee as well as law enforcement. Our union represents, in Stanislaus County alone, represents 6,000 home care and child care providers, and this is something that they have said is near and dear to their heart. And knowing that I can report back to my membership and let them know that their concerns are being heard. Sorry about the train in the background, but is exciting. And I'm excited for the movement on this, and I urge everybody to support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any comments on the inside?
Sí. I'll get you a mic.
Yep. So, let's
Por
see.
favor, hable y puede, si puede tomar. Okay, take it over.
All right.
Sorry about the audio issue. We're working on that.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Another one? Here's another one there. Thank you. Now that one works.
Hola, buenas tardes. Yo lo que quiero comentar hoy sobre algo que pasó ahí al lado de mi casa. Llegó la policía a las 7 de la mañana y yo siento que deben de investigar bien antes de entrar a una casa.
I'm sorry, I was interrupted. Okay, this is the case where I was present at 7 o'clock in the morning. The police came.
Llamaron a las personas, pero las personas estaban dormidas.
They tried to contact some people, but they were asleep.
Esas son unas personas muy buenas de la tercera edad.
They are good people. They are seniors.
Y yo pienso que deben de investigar muy bien antes de llegar y entrar a la fuerza.
I think that
Llegaron rompiendo puertas y entrando así, y las personas se asustaron mucho.
They actually came in very violently, trashing the door and getting in and scaring everybody inside.
Y esa es mi opinión, que deberían de investigar más bien a las personas que viven ahí cuando va a haber algo, porque pueden causar hasta que le diera un ataque a la persona.
So I think they should investigate before entering a house who's actually living there, because they can even cause a heart attack to the persons who are inside.
Yes.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir.
All right. We have another comment virtually. Was that Latricia? Latricia from
Good
Faith and
evening.
Value?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, my name is Pastor Latricia Beasley Day. I am a staff pastor at Victory and Praise Church, and I'm also a community organizer with Faith in the Valley. And I just want to say I'm excited on the recommendations that I've heard so far, especially civilian oversight. Mental health is key. We need mental health clinicians. Being a former social worker with the county, I know how sensitive our community is, and I know how shy our community is of having mental health clinicians, enough of them. And I'm sure, having had the opportunity to process through the cultural relations group that with the Modesto Police Department and community, that there is a great need to bridge the gap. And that program has really done a wonderful opportunity. I heard Ron speaking of bridging and the community getting to know our Modesto Police Department. That's an awesome opportunity to do so. So I am looking forward to not only these recommendations being spoken of in a more detailed manner, but I'm also looking forward for the implementation, because even as Astrid spoke earlier, we need help in our community for the mental health, and we need to be able to help our police officers do their job and have mental health workers work more closely with those who are out in our community who are having issues, whether they're homeless or whether they're housed. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to have the whole entire community hear these recommendations so that we can all move together as one unit to get it implemented and working together and being community where there is truly unity in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comments? Anyone else have a thought, an idea, or any feedback? All right. Here you go.
Sí, también puede pausar.
Sí. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Yo quiero hacer un comentario acerca de una cosa que pasó en mi casa hace ya algunos años.
I want to talk about that incident that happened in my house already some years ago.
No sé cómo aplique en este caso, pero mi suegro estaba afuera jugando en la yarda con mis hijas y otros nietos de él.
And it happened that my father-in-law was playing with some children in the backyard.
Entró diciéndonos que le llamáramos a la policía, que porque había sentido cómo le habían pasado como algo que le voló por los oídos.
He asked, ¿le preguntó a su suegro?
Sí.
Okay, he asked his father-in-law to call the police because he had heard something that went through. ¿Qué fue lo que le voló?
Sintió como si fuera una bala lo que le pasó por el oído.
Oh, he felt like there was a bullet actually grazing him his ear.
Entonces dijo él que se había asomado hacia, ¿cómo se dice? El alley.
¿El qué?
El callejón.
The alley, yeah.
Y ya estaban dos muchachos acostados en el suelo con un rifle de diablos, de balines.
Yeah, there were two kids in the alley laying on the ground, and they had an air rifle.
Fueron dos veces las que le pasaron a él y nos quebraron la ventana de la casa.
And those were the BB guns that actually hit the window and break the window.
Llamamos a la policía y llegó una oficial, era mujer.
We called the police, and there was an officer that showed up, and it was a female officer.
Ella nos recomendó que simplemente no hiciéramos nada porque en el barrio donde vivimos podía haber una venganza de las personas a las que fuéramos a demandar por haber hecho eso.
They told us not to do anything because there was the fear that they would retaliate because there was a lot of retaliation in that neighborhood.
Entonces, en este caso yo pienso que para qué llamar a la policía si no van a hacer nada.
Then I asked why to call the police if they are doing nothing.
Eso se quedó así y pues todavía está la ventana ahí quebrada.
Everything stays the same. The window is still broken.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. Any other public comments?
¿Alguien más gusta?
Don't go away.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Hay algo que siempre cuando miro las noticias me pregunto por qué. ¿Por qué un policía, si tiene que disparar, por qué no dispara a las piernas o a las manos? ¿Por qué siempre tiene que matar?
There's a question that I always ask when I see the news, why just an officer has to shoot the body, I mean the chest, not to the legs or the arms. Why do they shoot to kill?
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm Darlene Thomas. I'm president of NAMI Stanislaw affiliate here in Modesto. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all these changes come about. I think one of the things that's really important is the CIT training to educate our officers so they can better meet the needs, of the people that call on them. And as far as having a mental health person go with them on calls, I think that's a great idea. I think it will work a lot better. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And please know that your comment isn't just going into thin air. When you express yourself, we're taking those and we're tracking those comments. And you may not get an answer tonight, but those comments are being factored in to the recommendations and to the feedback that's going to be given to this work group and for those recommendations. So your comment is an important comment. The answer to the comment may not happen tonight, but the point of the comment is for you to get a chance to give your feedback for this work group to consider that when laying out these recommendations.
I don't have a comment, a question, I have a comment. I would just like these meetings and information to be maybe posted on the Modesto Bee in the calendar event section. I found out about Forward Together from friends. Well, and I did go to the West Modesto collaboration, and I went to a meeting there. And then I also found out from a friend who was in the NAACP who provided me with the Zoom link. So if you can just put it maybe in the Modesto Bee, because I do have friends that I did share the information with because they didn't know about the events that were being scheduled.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent feedback. We have one more comment. Okay. You want to come here?
A mí tampoco.
All right. There you go.
Buenas tardes. Lo primero que quiero comentar es que a un conocido en la familia.
Can you wait 1 second? Yeah. Here's one over here.
¿Mama?
Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I'm sorry. ¿Puede empezar?
Lo primero que quería comentar
The first
es
thing I wanted to say,
un conocido de la familia
a known person to my family,
tenía el problema de, ¿cómo se llama? No es esquizofrenia ni nada, es como cuando están enfermos de depresión.
he doesn't have schizophrenia, but he has depression.
En lo que tenemos que hacer nosotros como familia, no echar la culpa todo el tiempo a policía,
What we have to do is not to all the time blame the police force,
porque nosotros también tenemos el problema de que no nos educamos acerca del problema.
that's because of we don't educate ourselves about that problem.
Tenemos que ayudar a nuestra familia adentro también, no solo afuera. El policía no nos va a ayudar todo el tiempo.
Because we have to solve the problem within the family, the police is not going to be there to help us all the time.
Necesitamos ser fuertes
We need to be strong,
educarnos
educate ourselves.
acerca de estas enfermedades,
We need to educate ourselves about these illnesses,
porque a veces somos injustos
because sometimes we're unjust
con los de la policía o personas
with the police officers
o personas que están médicos, doctores, que todo el tiempo queremos echarle culpa a ellos por lo que pasa.
and doctors and other health workers that we want to blame all the time for every ill.
Y la verdad, desde niños tenemos problemas y no los sacamos por pena.
Since children, we have problems, and because of we're ashamed of it, we don't let them out.
So, tenemos que hablar con nuestros hijos y tenemos que hablar con nuestras personas, aunque seamos adultas, lo tenemos que comentar también.
So we have to talk to our children, and we have to talk to adults at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you. That was really valuable feedback, and that should be added to the information booth that we have, so that when going back over these recommendations and looking at some of the adjustments that's been made, let us consider what we've heard inside of this public comment period. And we only usually allow one comment, but if you can make it really brief.
It will be.
All right.
Being a member of the West Modesto community, I've spoken to a lot of families, and what they seem to be interested in is things that their teens and young adults don't have many activities to do in the community. They would like to be involved, but there's nothing that they can feel that they can get involved in. I would like to see more events or more projects for young adults to be engaged in so that we can gather around them. They can get to know the police force, and there's less chance of an accident happen if you know that person.
Thank you. Thank you. So that will conclude our public comment period. And for right now, I'd like for us to, for work group members, to consider some of the revisions that have been made to the recommendations. And if you have any feedback on those revisions, now would be a time for you to give some input.
And Michael, if I could, just one thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were reviewing the revisions that's important. So there's a section 3 at the end called Final Reflections and Conclusions. I've added from the Forward Together facilitators. So I just want to make sure it's clear that section hasn't been written yet, but it's going to be written by Michael and Kate. And so we kind of view it as not something we need to approve. That's going to be their place to give input. And I just kind of wanted that to be clear to the work group.
Thank you. And if you could go to the next slide for me. So when you look at this, we see on number 1, this makes no sense to me. This contradicts how I was seeing things. This poses a problem for moving forward together. Number 2 is, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not sure about this either. Number 3 is, we have some work to do, but good enough for now. Number 4 is, this resonates with me. I really like where we're going with this. And number 5 is, wow, this is so great. We nailed it. This reflects all my hopes and my dreams. This makes me feel deeply optimistic about moving forward together. So what I'd like for the work group is to consider where you are from 1 to 5. Is there anyone that's at a 3 or below? And that's great, right? So now, let us check just by maybe a nod or a short statement. Where are you? Checking our alignment with each other. Where are you? 4? 4. All right, like right in between. All right. Tom?
I'm definitely at a 4. The only reason why I'm not saying 5, and maybe this is like a technicality, but reflect all my hopes and dreams. No, that's not true, but that's because we work together, right? I don't think anybody got their hopes and dreams, but I think we did something good. I think we negotiated. Everybody sacrificed something. Everybody got something.
Right.
So maybe a 5 wasn't possible for me, but a very strong 4, and I'm very enthusiastic about the process.
That's really great, Tom, because, you know, when we started off this process together, we remembered that we all came in with people with us. And so when we bring in all of these people with us, we may have to give and take a little bit, you know. Good point. Trish?
I would say we're pushing towards that 5 right now. You know, there is no such thing as perfection, and this is the first time we've done something like this, but where we're going and what we're creating and what we're going to be able to do for community with this is going to make a lot of change. So I feel good about where we're headed.
Excellent.
Same thing, 4. 4 as well.
All
For the
right.
same reasons, we all came together at the beginning of the process, and where we're at now, there's, like you said, a lot of negotiation, a lot of different...
Let us get a mic in front of you.
A lot of different viewpoints and, you know, maybe lack of education, and we've been able to educate on both sides, and I think it's just one of the strong reasons why we came together.
Right.
So, and we understand, obviously, moving forward, we need the community's involvement along with all of our stakeholders.
Right. Thanks for that.
Well, I said 5 last time. I'm going to stick with that because I certainly didn't go backwards. But I really like what Tom said about being a 4. That's a strong case for 4, and I certainly agree with that.
All right. We're going to keep you at your 5.
Yeah, that's right.
So for myself, I'm at a 4 as well. Obviously not a 5 because, like everyone else said, this is the first time doing something like this, and obviously there's going to be some room for growth, and there's no perfection right now. So 4, close to a 5. So.
That's good.
I'm a 4, and for me, the end result will really be what really happens at the end, and maybe looking back at this a couple years from now, after some of these practices have been tried and tested.
Right. Thank you.
I would agree that I'm a strong 4.
But I would like to say I have so appreciated seeing all the research and the thoughtfulness that everybody has put into this, that we have heard from the community on so many different things, and I feel like it embodies a whole lot of what people want. And I too am kind of waiting to see what gets adopted by
Right.
City Council from our recommendations. So
That's great. Thank you. Teresa?
Well, last month I was too, and I feel better about things, but I'm not going to give it a 4 or 5 yet. And I'm happy about some of the changes that we have made. I think we have work to do, especially on my ad hoc group. But I'm glad to see community stepping up, and I look forward to working with what they think about this and what the council thinks going forward.
Right, that's really good. I appreciate that point of view, because what we all have come to understand is that this is a living, breathing document and process. And just like all other living, breathing things, we have to grow, adapt, and change and improve. When we learn better, we do better. And so the work that we've done, I think that we've learned better, and the result of us, most of us, and I think Teresa's really close to a 4. But the fact that we're like at that place, I think that it's really important for each one of us to really appreciate ourselves for the time and the diligence that's been taken to get us right here. You know, in the beginning, I almost tapped out, right? Because it seemed like we weren't going to get to this place, but we got here. All right.
Folks on Zoom, Mike.
Yes. And we have the work group members on Zoom. Linda? Where are you?
I thought you forgot about us.
I did,
No,
but I came over. They straightened me out. I have to summon. See, it's difficult for me to summon my Kate energy, right? But I'm summoning my Kate energy right now and paying attention to it all. We'd like to hear from you, Linda.
Okay, so can you hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say I'm a 4+, I guess, because it is kind of utopian for me to say a 5.
All right.
But I'm very, very proud of our team, and especially in the last couple of weeks, I feel like we've really come together and have the same vision. And if it all plays out, then that would be a number 5 for me.
That's great. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Yep. And then we have Ruben Imperial. Oh, Ruben's not a part of the work group. He's just been Dan Starr.
So I agree with what many have said, and I'm around a 4. So happy with the progress that we have made thus far.
All right. And Matthew Mason left a comment, and he was at a 4, probably teetering on 5, right? But yeah, so with that, I just really think it's important for you to know, I like to remember where we come from, to really have a good understanding and appreciation for where we are right now. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Will.
Thank you, Mike. So there, you know, a lot of people reference things are never going to be perfect, but I really like the saying "done is better than perfect." So this is better than perfect. This is done, I think. But of course, when I say that, I just mean the recommendations, right? And there's a lot more to come ahead. Arguably, the real work. I think Wendy and others kind of referenced that, and I 100% agree. We talked about this several times. If this just was a written report that got put up on a website somewhere and that was the end of it, this would be a failure, and it's important to make sure they're implemented. And I feel even more strongly now than I have at any time in the past that the wheels are already turning, that things are already happening. In fact, many of the important things we've talked about in here are things that are actually already in motion. Just to kind of update, so I think this was maybe covered in some of the ad hoc group meetings, but let's see, Dan, Tom, and I had an opportunity to brief some of the council members and give them something like the 3 to 5 minute version I gave earlier and address a few questions. So the council is being updated and continues to follow this and learn more about what's going on. Our work will be to, so I think we have our final recommendations. We'll have a clean version without all the redlining and edits that gets distributed to everyone. And we will come back on June 15th, really just to take a vote. We kind of took an informal temperature check of everyone's alignment, but we'll take a formal vote on June 15th to approve and adopt the recommendations. And that will be formally the end of Forward Together, or at least of the work group, but certainly not the end of our work. Staff is, I think, already thinking about implementation and working on the plan, and feel free to jump in if I miss anything. But as you can see up there, the thought is to have a sort of workshop for the council so that they can have an opportunity to learn more and ask questions and dig a little bit more into the details before they have to take any kind of action or formal process on this. Which I think is maybe going to be in July, although I know the date hasn't been set. And then sometime after that, not long after that, I think, but sometime after that, these recommendations will get presented to the City Council and we'll begin the implementation phase. And as has been said before, and probably bears emphasizing, the Council will not take this document we've created and say, okay, we're implementing everything immediately. What will likely happen, I think, what's being discussed is they will ask staff to come back with an implementation plan. So we are, as we've talked about in the ad hoc groups and several times, we are talking about the end result, the goals, the things we want to see happen. And so once the council accepts that, they'll begin a process of breaking it down into pieces. What can we do in the short term? What can we do in the medium term? What happens in the long term? And so even though we won't formally be the Forward Together work group at that point, I hope everyone will stay engaged and continue to be ambassadors to their communities and constituencies and helping guide these recommendations through the process and seeing these things implemented. I think that's about it. I think we've had ad hoc group meetings every month. I think the ad hoc group meetings are done. I think we've completed those processes. I think each of the last ad hoc meetings ended with kind of resolution on where we are. But if I'm wrong about that, if there's a need for another ad hoc meeting, contact the chair of that group and we can work on that. And I just want to maybe open it up now for comments from the work group, because I've now that I've kind of laid out these next steps, I'd love to hear from, Perfecto.
Yeah, I just want to say that I would like to thank these ladies who took the time to come, because there's no question that there are concerns about what's taking place in the community that they live in. And as I always told them, that they're the change agent for their community. They're the ones that are going to make the difference, not organizations, because community-based organization is just an organization. Community is a community. And we are seeing a lot more engaging of our community and on different topics and different concerns that they have. And I personally want to thank you for coming.
Yes.
I really do, because it makes a difference when you see somebody in the community who really wants to get engaged. And I think that we should all stand up and applaud them, because they took the time, brought their children, and spend the time to be with us to share their concerns. So I'm going to stand up and applaud them.
I will join you. Yeah.
Very well said.
Thank you, Perfecto. Yeah, we'll hardly agree. And thank you to all of our guests who came out and spoke today. Other comments from the, yes, go ahead, Leah.
I would just like to say, I know there were several that mentioned the concern about how the police respond for mental health. And I just want to share, I have been through this process so happy to see how the police were already working on that themselves.
Yes.
And we're already going to the city council and getting funding. So chat is pretty much already up and running. And did you get funding for the clinicians?
Ask the board of supervisors, but it looks like we will have some microphone funding for a few more years.
I'll repeat it. He said it looks like they will have sustained funding for clinicians for the next few years. And so part of our yes, yay. And I saw, I think in the Modesto Bee, that also funding was approved for 40 hours of training for police officers for mental health training and crisis intervention training, which had, they'd lost it for a few years, and now that's back as well, so.
And that CIT training, the first class starts, I believe, June 24th will be our first 40-hour class that's reinstituted.
So I just want to say I'm glad to see those things are already moving forward. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Other comments from the work group? Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that Perfecto said and say thank you to the members of the community that came out. I know how important that is for us to hear you, and I know how tough it can be to make it out. You know, if I could do something more about it, I'd have childcare and dinner for everybody, because I know that could be a reason why you don't make it to a meeting sometimes. So, you know, and the beginning of the process, I know there was a lot of discussion about making sure there was Spanish language outreach to the community, and I think that got better over time. Just something to think about for future processes, especially if dialogue around this issue continues. I think it's really important. We live in a community that relies on a lot of people that speak Spanish, and when they're part of the community, they should feel completely part of the community. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you to everybody. You know, 10 years ago, we had some meetings. Wendy and the NAACP put on some meetings about these issues, and the progress that I've seen in the community and people becoming, coming together around these issues, I think, you know, if somebody would have told me we would have been at this point 10 years ago at some of those meetings where, you know, some of these ideas were kind of pie in the sky, right? And if somebody would have told me that I'd be here about 10 years later, you know, talking about this, I probably wouldn't have believed it. I think that the steps that the chief has taken, especially with these alternative response models, and I think he's definitely gone, you know, above and beyond what he had to, and I'm just really excited about all the progress we've made, and want to thank everybody that put all their time and hard work into it. That the staff, you know, they're behind the scenes, but they're making sure that all of this stuff happens. So I really can't say thank you to everybody enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Other comments? Is there anyone on Zoom who wanted to say anything? All right. Well, there'll be plenty of time June 15th for goodbyes and thank yous, and I'll just say thank you to everyone, and maybe say thank you again.
Wait,
then.
wait, I wanted to. Wait.
Linda, go right ahead. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, I did want to say that I am so grateful to have had this opportunity to serve on this committee and in the subcommittees. And it's a personal issue for me. And I've been so impressed with the relationship between our police chief and our mental health director. It's amazing, and it's given me a lot of confidence in moving forward. And also our team. I have so much respect for all of you, and I felt like we really did get along and work together, and it was just a much more pleasant experience, I guess, than what I was expecting. But it was wonderful, and I'm really privileged to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Kalua.
Just one last comment. I spoke with the mayor. She will be here on the 15th to say a few words and kind of put a bookend in this really important process. And again, can't thank enough for the folks online from the community and the folks here who followed up on the meeting that we had earlier this week. So back to you. Thank you,
Kalua. Any other comments before we adjourn tonight? That's good. From the work group. But happy to talk later on. I'd love to hear your thoughts. With that, just thank you again.
Okay, on behalf of the West Modesto Community Collaborative, we'd like to invite everyone, if you care to have another meeting in our facility, it's available to you.
Thank you, Ron.
By way of Perfecto Muniz.
Wonderful. We will certainly be taking you up on that. All right, with that, I think we'll adjourn, and we'll see you June 15th back here. Thank you. Good night, everyone.